Hello, no holds barred witchcraft fans. Today we are talking about Hocus Pocus. You know that was it Disney, Chris? Is it Disney film?
I think
Feels like a Disney
technically,
thing.
I think
Don't
so.
know. It might be a Disney thing. The Sanderson sisters. I put a spell on you and now you're mine. All of that jazz. Now I know a lot of the time, when it comes to witches making YouTube videos, they always want to comment about new programs that come out and old programs that come out and talk about how it's misappropriating their craft and that sort of thing. I think we're just going to agree that Hocus Pocus is a classic and that we like it, don't we,
It's a
Chris?
classic, yeah. And obviously, at the moment, they're
Right.
talking about actually revamping it and bringing it out a sequel after 30
Oh, a
years.
sequel.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that might be quite good if it's a sequel. I don't like it when they
Oh no,
reinvent
they're
it
not
and try to
remaking it.
redo it again. That might be quite good if it's a
I
sequel.
don't know how you do a
Now,
sequel,
rather
but
than, I'm sure that hopefully they'll make a good job of it, and I'm sure we'll watch it. Um, so basically, instead of talking all about the storyline and all that crap, because these people have probably watched it, and if they haven't, they need to go away. Let's just delve into the magical sides of things. So tell me, Chris, what is the secrets of the Black Flame Candle?
well, good luck trying to find a virgin, is all I'm going to say. They're so hard to
What
find
does
these
that mean?
days.
But does that mean a virgin is in the never been to bed with someone version, or is it a magical version? Because there's a lot of magical versions within the witchcraft community.
We call them Wiccans, don't we?
Well, I was thinking, yeah, I wouldn't possibly say such things. There's certainly a lot in the ceremonial magicians club.
Look at
They
that.
call them theoretical magicians.
Look at that. We're only 2 minutes in and I already dropped the W word.
Were the Sanderson sisters Wiccans?
No, definitely not.
No? Were they traditional witches?
But even that's a
Did they have a
controversial
stang?
term now.
I don't think they had a stang. They can't be a traditional witch. Surely all traditional witches have got stangs,
I
don't
don't
they?
know, but they were devil worshippers, weren't they?
Oh well, they're that kind of chilling Adventures of Sabrina type witches, the ones no one
Yeah.
likes because everyone thinks they witches don't have never worshipped the devil and such.
Well, they've never met the folk devil then, have they?
Oh, that old pesky folk devil.
Yeah, that old pesky folk devil.
So the secrets of the black flame
Sorry,
candle then.
black
Can
flame
you
candle.
spill some secrets? What is a black flame candle?
Well, it's a candle with a black flame.
Right. And how do you make a black flame
Well, the
candle?
strange thing about it, if I remember rightly, was that it almost sounded like a hand of glory. It was talking about kind of the fat of a hanged man, that sort of thing. I'm sure it did,
Yeah.
in order for them to
Yeah.
make it, but I can't remember exactly what they said. It would have been really useful if we'd have watched the film before this, wouldn't it? To actually refresh ourselves, but.
From what I remember of the Hocus Brocus parody song, it was if you light the black flame candle, if the black flame candle's lit by a virgin, then the Sanderson sisters come back. So is it like a little fail safe in case you as a witch get killed or whatever, then it's a candle which enables you to come back to life? Is it something like that?
Maybe,
Because I thought that
but it was kind of
the modern
it was kind of a
sorry.
reconjure, wasn't it? So when they died, they'd put this fail-safe in that they would come back. So
Yeah.
it was a long-standing curse, but it was really specific. Like it had to be lit by a virgin on a full moon on Halloween, and yeah.
Yeah, but it was created by Winifred, wasn't it? And she's one for her correspondences, hence why she carries a book around everywhere. She's what you may be right when you call them Wiccans because they like their correspondences also.
I did not call them
So
Wiccans.
maybe
You
they're
did.
not maybe they're not traditional witches. Maybe they are Wiccans. They're just really really powerful Wiccans if there's such a thing.
Well, isn't that what they call traditional witches? Powerful
Oh, you're
Wiccans.
so bad.
Powerful
You're so
Wiccans.
bad.
Trad witches.
Well, that book she carries around with the human eye
Yeah,
on
it's
it.
also made of flesh.
Right, because I was thinking that it was that new book that's come out by Keldon.
Oh
Is
dear.
is that not just the limited edition of Traditional Witchcraft by Keldon? Does that tell you how to make a black flame candle? Because you know Our Lady Poisons lent me that book, don't you?
Oh dear.
I picked it up today. She said, you like reviewing really books, don't you? Well, here's this book by someone called Keldon. And I said, well, I have heard of this Keldon person. There's a YouTube channel about it. And I said, I'm not going to prejudge it until I've read the book. So she's lent me
Okay.
the book. So maybe we'll have to do something about that. But anyway, the secrets of the black flame candle. I'll tell you the secret of the black flame candle because if I don't tell you, then an Insta witch will tell you. Basically, black flame candle, you get a normal black candle, you take a little video of it or a picture, and then you apply a special Instagram filter with and then post it with the appropriate hashtags on Instagram, and then you become a witch. It's a kind of initiation.
Oh,
So a lot of
okay.
people
I get it now.
initiate by taking a picture of some crystals, maybe nice manicured hands, nice nails, and some crystals. They'll take a picture. And then you need to add the appropriate magic words, which nowadays on the internet, millennials would call hashtags. Back in the day, they were magic words. Nowadays, it's hashtags. And that's all you need to be a witch these days, is that you need the magical words, which are in fact hashtags. So all you baby boomers and Generation X out there, which don't know what I'm talking about, well, I'm translating that to you traditional witches. Magic words, back in the day, words of power, nowadays hashtags. Okay? There's a secret for
Oh,
you.
I don't think this was supposed to be a rant video recording.
No, well, let's get back to it then.
So,
So there's a couple of themes in Hocus Pocus, isn't there? There's
yeah.
them coming back from the underworld, presumably, being triggered by the failsafe. I don't know if I'd call it a curse. I think it's a curse as in they said because they've been hung or driven out of town. I think they got killed, didn't they? Hung or something
Yeah,
for
I think so.
witchcraft. They said they'll come back if a virgin lights this candle. So I see that as a failsafe device to trigger reanimation
Yeah.
of a corpse because they come back all old and haggard, don't they?
Yeah, and then they have to
And then they
breathe in
have to
children.
kind of, yeah. So there's that. There's the whole Pied Piper thing, which actually I found out is not quite as cool as what we imagined. So
Oh,
with the Pied Piper thing is I forget what is the blonde one. The blonde one, what's her name in it? I
I
forget
don't
what her
know.
name
She's the
is.
one that played by thingy out of Sex and the City.
Yeah, so she sings a song and then it leads all the children like the Pied Piper.
Yeah.
Now, what I didn't realize is that that's not actually how it works. So what they did was feed a potion to the children, but that scene got deleted because there wasn't enough
Ah.
time to put in. So it's actually a proper traditional witch's poisoning of children's minds by giving them hallucinogenic
Oh
drugs.
wow.
So it is traditional witchcraft,
Maybe,
Chris.
maybe.
It's not actually
Yeah,
Wicca.
that would make it traditional
Yeah.
witchcraft because there was actually some witchcraft involved.
And flying ointments and herbs and
Well,
stuff.
yeah, she did ride a vacuum cleaner. That was one of my favourite scenes.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's a cat, which was actually a person, so a person transfigured or turned into a cat as a curse.
Yep.
There seems to be somewhat immortal, I think, doesn't it? Because it's a very, very long-lasting
Well, I
cat.
think he's actually got 9 lives. I think that is how they play it in it.
Ah, okay. Oh, yeah, of course. Right. And then you've also got reanimation of, I think it was her dead ex, wasn't it? The
Yeah,
zombie man.
yeah.
Yeah.
Billy or something. William something.
Yeah, it was Billy, I think. Yeah, William, which they called Billy,
Yeah.
who was still doing her bidding. So he was still a cuck even when he came back.
Yeah.
So yeah, what are we going to tackle then? Which of these things today are we going to explain how to do?
Well, one we didn't mention first, I think, is Coven Dynamics was the cool thing about it. Is you've got this little trio of witches because that's that
And Winifred's in charge.
Winifred's in charge. And that
The
just,
ugly. Well, is she the ugliest? I don't know. She's the oldest, isn't
she's the
she?
oldest
The
sister.
oldest is in charge. Yeah, that's it. The older sister's in charge of the younger sisters.
Yeah.
That's the common dynamic there.
Yeah. Hereditary witchcraft, that is. So they,
Ah. Normally you see it over several generations though, don't you? Normally it's like the granny and then you've got oh, I wouldn't like to say mother, maiden and crone type dynamic, but that's the stereotypical one, isn't it? That's
yeah,
kind of like the charmed style
yeah.
thing.
But they kind of had got that going on with the Winifred sisters because they didn't look very close in age.
Well, that's because they hadn't finished. They were slightly different in age, but also they didn't have enough potion, did they, to bring them all back to their full youth, technically.
Suppose.
So it works out well, I think, with the archetypes because of that.
Hmm.
But who knows what they'll do in the
So, I mean, I
next
have no
one?
idea what they would do. Anyway, sorry, what do you
Because
want to do?
obviously, I don't know. Well, I think what's the most common type of magic that they do in that? There's quite a fair amount of potion making, isn't it? That seems to be.
Yeah, it's very kind of Macbeth, you know, eye of newt, toe of frog, that sort of shit.
Mm,
So,
and a lot of hand zapping lightning and stuff.
oh yeah, forgot about that bit. So no, yeah, I think it's got this very kind of Macbethy kind of feel to it, hasn't it? Of
Yeah,
being these kind of haggard old crones that want to suck the youth out of children, um, in order to live forever. Like it's got that very kind of Disney witch meets Macbeth. Um, but no, okay. What do you want to tackle first? I guess Pied Piper's quite a cool one. Let's start there.
the Pied Piper. Okay, so obviously they need children as an ingredient, don't they?
Yeah,
But also, I think it's almost like biblical plague, the biblical plagues of Egypt, and I'm taking your firstborn son kind of
yeah,
thing. It kind of feels like we're going to exact our revenge by stealing your youth to a certain extent as well. Um, but aren't they also scared of children in that?
yes.
So when they're scared of children,
I don't
yeah.
quite get. I never quite got that bit. Why they were scared of children?
Is it because they're pure?
Maybe. But then they're required as an ingredient in pretty much everything they do. Like, but is that because they?
Yeah, but we've used some nasty ingredients that I wouldn't really want to touch with my hands.
Yeah, I suppose.
Okay, so the Pied Piper, which we have now established, it was actually cut the potion given to the children to put them in that kind of a suggestible state, zombie state,
Yeah,
essentially. That was mainly the song wasn't so much a magical song. So it's not really actual magic so much going on there, but it is kind of a distraction, a follow me along
yeah.
kind of
It was
thing.
a collection more than a. So it's still kind of Pied Piper in the sense that it was
Yeah,
music following music, but the actual administering of the spell work actually begins with a potion. That's cool.
yeah.
I actually didn't know that bit.
You find parallels with that in don't really want to say shamanic practice, but gap year student shamanic practice.
Oh yeah,
In that you've got kids which take copious amounts of drugs, whether it be magic mushrooms or ayahuasca and that, and they just take the drugs
and then
to get in
discover
a
a
state
guru.
because and then discover a guru, but they don't have a disciplined mind and an idea of where to take them.
No,
So I like the parallel of they've been administered the stuff, but then she is taking them on a journey, on a ride. Whereas I don't see that a lot with these people that kind of experiment with flying. Well, there wouldn't even be flying omens because you don't really see that outside witchcraft. But smoking the marijuana and all these very other um, magic mushrooms and stuff like that. All these people think, well, I'll take those mind altering drugs and that's it. But actually, if you look at traditional witchcraft practice, there would be rituals and things. You're programming the mind to take you somewhere. And I like the fact that that's kind of illustrated, although they did chop quite a lot of the scenery out. I see it as illustrated there. Whereas, you know, people think that when it comes to working with flying ointments and that's it. You just take the flying ointment and you lie down and that's it.
Yeah.
But actually,
No.
in terms of getting to a destination, there needs to be extra stuff involved with that. Is that fair to say?
Definitely. Yeah. It just uh, people just assume that it's a case of, oh well, just pop some LSD or some magic mushrooms, and be, bada bing, bada boom, you're in this special other side of the world. Whereas no, that's why it's often referred to as riding the hedge. Like you've got to have
Mm,
actually got to it and then participated. It's not as simple as just simply going somewhere.
yeah. Well, we're going to do one on hedge riding at one point anyway,
Yeah,
aren't we? At some point, we're going to do. So I suppose we'll leave the real details to that. But yeah. So in terms of why are they quite easily foiled then? It only takes a couple of kids to basically foil their plans and such for something so powerful, or a group of girls that are so powerful with all of their lightning zapping and stuff like that.
yeah, but all you need is a
Do you think
circle of
that is,
salt.
well, there we go. Is it their magical aptitude that fails them, or is it their personality? Because you see that a lot, don't you,
Yeah,
when it comes to magical practice, whereas actually the psychology of the person that lets them down and not actually their magical ability.
yeah, where they just don't understand their ability, or can't get their push their willpower in the right direction in order to make something work that well. Or yeah, again, kind of coven. I imagine that again, that's where coven dynamics comes back into it. Is that actually it's three incompetent people. One, one out of the three thinks they're competent, and therefore, blind leading the blind kind of situation.
Well, it's like those minions, isn't it? So you've got what happens if you've got three minions that form a coven.
Yeah,
And I suppose to a certain extent, it's the blind leading the blind. So it's kind of like if you've got a bunch of kind of nitwits, and one of them establishes themselves as the leader, then they're kind of stumbling around. I mean, they are given a book because that book's supposed to be given to Winifred by the devil, from what I remember.
yeah,
It was the
master.
Devil's Book of Magic and stuff. Yeah, Master and all that. So at least, yeah, it's not a book by Keldon,
No,
unless Keldon is the devil. Is Keldon the folk devil?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right. I'm just checking.
No, I don't think he's got that much power.
Right, so what else are we talking about? Sorry, I've completely lost where I am now. So yeah, Hocus
You've
Pocus.
got the
We've talked.
you've got the raising the dead part. So
Oh
when she
yes,
brings Willie back, William,
physical necromancy.
physical
Physical
necromancy,
necromancy. Like in Old Norse, they loved a bit of physical
and
necromancy
they'd
in Old
they'd sewed
Norse.
his mouth shut, hadn't they? It was a proper traditional curse.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
So he's been buried because he jilted her, didn't he? Didn't he cheat on her or something?
I'm not sure. I can't remember. I'm presuming it was something like that because I presume she killed
So
him
she killed
and
him and sewed his
and
mouth.
cursed him basically.
Yeah, and sewed his mouth
Yeah.
shut so he could never speak of all the things he knew about them.
Ah, right. Okay.
And then yeah, she calls him from the grave, and like you say, physical necromancy. Um, and it's just comical, isn't it? He's got that kind of feel of the zombies from the Michael Jackson Thriller advert,
Yeah.
So it's got that kind of, dusty. He's yeah, it was good. It was good.
Well, that was before people started using CGI and all of these things. It was actual puppets or costumes and stuff, and
Yeah.
there's something to be said about that, I think. But yeah, I miss the days of where it was actual animatronics and costumes and all that kind of thing in these kind of films. But there we go. So okay, so if you've got your little would-be witch at home and she wants to do a spell, or he wants to do a spell, or they want to do a spell, on someone that would involve sewing their mouth together. Now, we don't recommend that they do that to the actual person because that would probably break a lot of laws.
Yes,
But you could substitute the person, the physical person, for a puppet of that person.
definitely.
Because I think that that's a popular thing, isn't it? Is sewing the mouth of a puppet shut.
Yeah. See no evil, speak
Do you
no
want to talk
evil.
us through that?
So, okay, you want me to talk you through puppets? You're making me out to be the puppet person. I guess I am the
Well,
puppet
no, I'm
person,
just thinking
but
in terms of giving them a spell, because I've listened to some other podcasts and we've got actual competition in the fact that there are other witchcraft podcasts out there.
really,
Now, I mistakenly thought that there weren't any because there were some podcasts that I listened to that say witchcraft and that in the title, but they don't actually talk about any real magic. So I was thinking we were the only one at one point, but there are a couple where they give like spells and stuff. So I thought, well, maybe we should start doing something like that.
okay.
So you give someone a super simple spell that involves sewing the mouth of something shut, whether it be a puppet or a toad, familiar, your neighbor's familiar, because of course, as we know from all of the modern traditional witchcraft books, your cat is your familiar, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, totally. Um, my cats are a bad example because obviously my,
Well, your cats are possessed, so that's a little bit different.
so they get used quite often as vessels, so that's slightly different. But okay, right. So the most simple way would be to create some kind of effigy. So it would be a case of making a very basic little doll out of some cloth or whatever. Obviously,
Or buy one from
or buy
us.
one from us, and then obviously you would make that up, stuff it up with whatever you know you want to fill it with, straw, rosemary, some kind of other magical stuffing, old rags. It really doesn't matter. It kind of depends on what you're going to do with it. Obviously,
I like to use something that belongs to the person to stick that in there. So socks and pants are quite a popular one when it comes to spouses and other halves. So if you can make the poppet out of that, or stuff bits of that in the poppet. But I like his with beginners. I like as much magical stuff as possible. Stuff that actually belongs to the target if you can get that.
because they're covered in.
I'm not great at sewing though.
Well, no, you normally get me to do it. Obviously, yes, you can include biologicals, but I don't necessarily need to include biologicals. But the one good
No,
way
but
around
you're a
that,
super witch. You're a super witch. You don't need a puppet anyway. You just reach out with your mind and snap them in half.
there is that.
But the everyday beginner can't do that, Chris.
Okay,
We have
sorry,
to remember that.
sorry. Um, so yeah, so it would be a case of yes, making it out of whatever is to hand. So, like Liam says, particularly with kind of ex-lovers or anything like that, you can guarantee somewhere in the house you're going to have, socks or pants or something like that that they left behind. It doesn't necessarily matter that whether or not they are dirty, but obviously that helps if you can get them back for one more one more round, just to kind of make sure that you've got something that has their essence still on it. It doesn't really matter. The connection would be strong enough just from something they owned. It spent enough time in their kind of aura space, for lack of a better word, to have a strong enough connection to use. So obviously, yeah, then you can make it out of that, or you can stuff it with those. It really depends. Obviously, anything else you want to put in there, I would always put a rock of some description in there, just because they tend to hold energies better than cloth necessarily. If you're wanting to manipulate, it just helps to have some kind of access point there. Um,
Get a cold rock from a river and stick it where their heart is, if it's an ex-lover.
so yeah, and then it's a case of kind of personalizing it. So you don't need to make sure that it looks like them. However, if you're a complete beginner, the more that you can make it look like that, you've got to remember this is about the kind of it's sympathetic magic. So this is the more you can make it look like that person, the easier it is for you to make that connection that it is that person. You want to have to spend as little time as possible having to focus on who it's for. It should instantly go, oh, that's Joe. Like, you know what I mean? That's the second you see the puppet. So the quicker that forces your unconscious mind to make that connection, the better. Then obviously,
I have a
go
question.
on.
Who's Joe and what did he or she ever do to you?
Oh, I was going for Joe Blogs.
Oh, Joe
Joe
Blogs.
Blogs.
Ah, the one that broke your heart.
Yeah,
Joe
obviously,
Blogs,
Joe
that one.
Blogs.
Okay. He's currently got his mouth sewed up.
Well, he's 6 feet under like William. Um,
You've lost your train of thought
yes,
now,
I
haven't
was
you?
suddenly trying to think where I left his soul last. But anyway,
In the underworld, isn't it?
I don't know. I wouldn't have been that nice to him, surely. Yeah,
One of the hell realms,
one of the
then,
hell
maybe.
realms, maybe. But yeah, so then once you've got your puppet and you've made the connection, it's a case of if you were going to sew its mouth up, it's going to be some kind of spell of kind of silence or a dumbing effect for whatever reason. So that might be that you made the mistake of letting them know secrets that they shouldn't know, and therefore when they're gone, you want to make sure that they don't spill those. It
Stop gossip.
stop gossip. It might
Yeah.
it might be that you want them to stop having the influence over others. Lots of people gain influence over using their voice, their charismatic voice. One way to stop something like that, when you're jilted about someone that's a bit cheated, maybe sewing up their mouth is one way of doing that. So, did I miss anything?
No, I was just gonna say, but you said sympathetic magic, but I've not got any sympathy for them. They deserve what they're getting.
Not what sympathetic magic means, Liam, and you know
Oh, well, what does sympathetic magic mean then?
it. Sympathetic magic means it's a kind of representational magic where it is similar. So it's got to be representational to the point that it represents the motion of what it is actually doing. So a mouth would be sympathetic of um, speech or silence or any word that you can associate with that. Sympathetic magic traditionally would be something that would match. So it might be that when you were cleansing, you would be sweeping. You know, it is that kind of that is sympathetic
Like old
magic.
Gerald Gardner sweeps with his I was gonna say his magic wand, his magic broom, his old-fashioned broom.
Yeah, so that's sympathetic magic, where it is a simple representation of the actual job you want it to do.
Sympathetic magic's used quite a lot in magic, especially the older sorts. You tend to find, particularly when you look at really ancient forms of magic, they say cave paintings kind of sympathetic or representational magic because they would paint these things, scenes depicting hunts, successful hunts, but they'd say that they'd paint them before the hunt took
Yes,
place.
not after.
Yeah, it's a bit like spells. I think you've done spells, helped people do spells and affirmations and things before for people that want a new job or they want their. Did you have one that's for someone's son that wanted a new job or a career or something like that?
Oh,
I remember you saying something like that.
yeah, that was a very different kind of puppet. That where she didn't even realise that's what she'd done. Where she
Oh,
drew a
right.
caricature of her son, um, and then would surround it with all the great qualities he had and all the positivity. And she'd put it up in her studio, and whenever she looked at it, she
Yeah.
sent all this positive energy towards it. Um,
Well, that's a really interesting one, and unfortunately, we are out of time for this edition of the podcast already.